Hi, my name is Alison Moorhead and this is a screencast on an SEN case study based on my research during my 8-week school placement. The special educational learning difficulty I focused on is dyslexia. In this screencast, I will highlight key areas of learning associated with this learning difficulty. I have supported this case study by gathering evidence through Stephen Brookfield's 4 lenses. Before I begin, this is a general rundown of the profile of the school. My school was situated in a rural town in Ireland. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, my entire school placement was delivered online. I used online platforms such as Google Classroom and Zoom. Google Classroom allowed me to set assignments and students could upload their work. I delivered all my classes live through Zoom. The scheme I set out to do with this group was painting. Due to the online realm, the scheme was adapted and modified to the medium students had in their own homes, using alternative mediums to visually translate. Students had to use their initiative to visually translate, which led to really exciting mediums. It was an exciting and new approach for students, and I had good engagement from this year group throughout. Dyslexia. The Dyslexia Association of Ireland defines dyslexia as a specific learning difficulty affecting the acquisition of fluent and accurate reading and spelling skills. This occurs despite accessing the appropriate learning opportunities. Dyslexia is characterized by cognitive difficulties in chronological processing, working memory, speed of retrieval of information from long-term memory. Dyslexic difficulties occur on a continuum from mild to severe and affect approximately 10% of the population. People with dyslexia may experience greater stress and frustration as they endeavour to learn, resulting in heightened anxiety, particularly in relation to literacy acquisition. Being a student teacher with dyslexia, I can relate to this student firsthand, and it is my job as a student teacher to provide a range of accommodations for students with learning difficulties arising from dyslexia. It is essential, of course, to see students as a whole person, complete with individual strengths and weaknesses. Teachers really need to be flexible in their approach so that they can find an approach that suits the student rather than expecting all students to learn the same way. Dyslexics have many strengths, being in good visual and spatial awareness and of course artistic abilities, which is fantastic for my subject. I gathered many research strategies to support my research study. The main websites I used are the National Council of Special Education, Dyslexia Support Ireland, Understanding Dyslexia, a guide for schools, Supporting Students with Dyslexia, Practical Guidelines for Institutes of Further Education. These are the overlapping teaching strategies highlighted to support learners with dyslexia. While gathering evidence to support my differentiation, I also spoke to my cooperating art teacher about the general strengths, needs and interests of the student in focus. These are the key aspects of the student's strengths. This allowed me to tailor my approach to teaching specific to the student in focus. For this study, I will refer to the student in focus as Alana. My cooperating teacher expressed that one of the students' main strengths was working visually, which stems, of course, into art, craft and design. She explained that Alana really enjoys and excels in art class. This came as no surprise, of course, to me, as very many dyslexic students hold fantastic artistic ability, and there's a lot of research done in this area. My cooperating teacher stated that communication and comprehension was a key struggle, and Alana is very shy. After having this conversation with my cooperating teacher, I set out targets to implement into my online learning realm to support the student. Building on the student's sense of achievement through praise, I implemented pair and group work into the online learning through breakout rooms to encourage peer learning and peer discussion. Within the online realm, I used lower order questioning to allow the student to answer successfully, building, of course, on her self-confidence. For this scheme, I will run through the differentiation I use for all 4 stages of the unit of learning. They are as follows. The title of the unit of learning I delivered to this group was called Our Daily Route. Our lives have significantly changed in recent times due to the pandemic. This brief really encouraged students to get outside, to take a closer look at what was around them and document it through photography. I provided a number of routes to the project, allowing Lana sufficient time to complete tasks and lowering the amount of photographs I asked for. I scaffolded the student by asking a lower level question to what she might capture on her daily route when I presented her with the brief, building on the student's interests and of course her initial ideas. I provided a visual worksheet to refer to, allowing the student in focus to connect the words and meaning to a visual image in reference to the principles of photography. These visual prompts helped with her comprehension in regards to principles of photography. Working from a given brief and using sequential learning to structure the student in focus learning so that the student can build skills gradually and in a logical way. So I provide the student with a checklist for each stage of the brief as set out. I definitely think this was extremely beneficial to Alana as she was able to tick the boxes when she completed the task. The NCSE also state to use planning sheets and checklists to help students organise themselves. This is Alana's photography in reference to the brief, our daily route photography. As I was made aware by my cooperating teacher that the student in focus learns visually by use of examples and showing the student how to achieve exactly what I am asking. To differentiate, in my line lesson, I provided all students with a step-by-step video in real time to complete the task. Online work, breaking up the steps to ensure clear and easy to handle, using pre-recorded video to allow students to work alongside me, as if we were almost in the classroom. I scaffolded learning by breaking it down into steps. The NCSE state to show students how to do things instead of telling them. This recorded demonstration did just that. During the process and development of composition and preliminary observational drawings, I implemented a plan for one-on-one tutorials with each student. This allowed me to check in on the student in focus, Alana, to ensure she was finding everything okay and formally assessing her understanding. It also allowed me to gain a relationship with the student and breaking down the barriers of this online realm. I asked her if there was anything I could do to help her learning and how she found everything to date. The student stated she liked the step-by-step videos when she is asked to do a task and that she hasn't been enjoying this class so far. During this one-to-one tutorial, I was able to give the student constructive oral feedback as well as already having given her the written feedback on her Google Classroom. I praised the student for the work she had made to date and encouraged her as we moved forward, advising her to add value to her work. The NCSE also state to evaluate students' understanding of content using oral rather than written questions. So by providing this one-on-one tutorial, that really allowed me to do this with that student. Moving on to analysing an artwork and the critical contextual studies during this brief, I divided students out into breakout rooms to discuss and analyse the artwork. The example of the worksheet is here to your left. This was very beneficial to the student in focus, and in my field notes I did note that Alana made an observation that the artist is drawing our attention to the forest in the background. As I checked in on students in the breakout rooms to see how they were getting on in the group exercise, Alana was excelling, working with her peers, lots of communication and input as they teased out ideas. Alana also reported back to the larger group, and although my cooperating teacher had said that the student in focus had little input in group discussion, I did not find this to be the case. The NCSE state in their recommendations to provide students with dyslexia with individual and small group learning. From my observation, I can agree this was hugely beneficial to my student, building on her confidence and use of communication skills to articulate her observation of the artist's work and communicating that to the entire class group. This was a really crucial point in the learning for my student, and I could really see her beginning to grow and really getting involved, which was fantastic during this brief. The student in focus created a final work using the medium of coffee. Alana has demonstrated the ability to work from a given brief. She has shown the ability to capture capture a photograph taking into consideration shapes and structural elements, focusing on her composition. Alana also articulated the concepts and meaning of her work through her reflective artist statement, identifying art elements in her work and her understanding of value and contrast. I do believe this brief has really built on her self-confidence, and she has identified in her artist statement that she is pleased with the final work. The experience of online, I do believe, is a barrier to engage with students. However, from my research conducted, I do believe that this slower pace really did benefit Alana. While the online realm was challenging, Google Classroom as well also definitely had its advantages, acting like a data collection system. I could upload PowerPoints that I delivered to students in class so they could go back and refer to them easily. I could provide students with step-by-step videos so they could stop and start. So this was very beneficial to Alana. She could take her time, and that was something she liked to really take her time with everything she did. Really paying attention to detail. So this Google Classroom was definitely beneficial with the data collection system and being able to provide students with class material 10 minutes prior to our live Zoom. When it came to handouts and worksheets, they were able to read through it, and then when I got to them in the live class, I could explain everything. They could read through it, and if they had any questions, they could ask me straight away. So I do believe that was extremely beneficial to Alana, the student in focus. Another thing, feeding on my own experience, I guess, as a learner and how I've brought that into my online classroom, I would constantly reiterate concepts that we've dealt with, art vocabulary, how do we achieve value, what is a medium, constantly reiterating what happened in the previous class. This was definitely very beneficial to the student in focus, but not only her, but to the entire class group. Again, the NSSE stayed to provide opportunities for students to relearn and overlearn. I do believe this is beneficial to all students. Really trying to get things to stick in that working memory, just by reiterating terms. But I do believe, reflecting on the feedback back from students, that they definitely understood what I was saying by me constantly going back over everything and reiterating our vocab, and that was extremely beneficial to all students, but in particular my student in question. And we can see that as she is able to state in her artistic statement that she would use value using her key artistic vocab. She has the emphasis and repetition there. So I do believe that was extremely beneficial. So while the online realm was extremely difficult, it did have its benefits in the data collection system for all students, but in particularly the student in question. Boris and Wolf, 1983, experts in the field of dyslexia, find that children diagnosed with dyslexia tend to be very creative and talented, yet struggle academically. I can say, and I do believe this research is extremely true. When speaking to my cooperating teacher at the end of the 8 weeks, she informed me Alana didn't actually participate in many classes, but was a regularly attended my class. So just showing she had a huge interest again, and just allowed her to be creative and to use her creative skills to express herself, really building on her critical thinking skills and enhancing her self-efficacy, which of course is fantastic. She also identifies that she is happy with her final work. I do believe I was successful on building on her communication in relation to the observation while analysing artwork, and her self-esteem. She is happy with her final work. So I'm really positive findings there in regards to my SEN student. A really great experience. Thank you so much for watching this screencast. I have attached the appendixes, my summative assessment rubric, and my table of figures, as well as my references I used for conducting this study. Thank you very much.